Welcome to After Reading Instruction and Analysis of The Masque of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. So the analysis of the short story, you're going to now take a closer look at things that were presented in the short story. If you go back to the pre-reading, there were 5 images that you looked at and were asked to think about what they might symbolize. So the first thing we're going to look at is symbolism. From there, symbolism then moves into allegory, and we'll get into that shortly. So the first thing you want to think about are the rooms. The rooms themselves, each one of them has its own symbol. For example, anytime you see a color written into a work of literature, you can assume that it probably has some kind of symbolic meaning. For example, blue is a symbol of birth. Purple is a symbol of growth. Green is a symbol of life. Orange is a symbol of autumn or fall or maturity. White is a symbol of old age. And sometimes thinking about like winter and snow, it can refer to be a symbol of death or impending death or old age. The violet is a symbol of darkness. And then black, which a lot of us already know when we see something we're referencing black, is death or destruction or decay. So each one of the rooms is a symbol of something. Also in the story, the rooms in which they are situated are a symbol of east and west. They're actually situated from right to left. So the blue room starts in the east, and then the last room ends in the west. So again, that's just the symbols. Now when we move into allegory, that's a little different. So you'll notice that a symbol is an ordinary object, event, person, or animal that has an extended meaning, significance, or something beyond itself. For example, your teacher wears a wedding ring. It's just a ring. However, it symbolizes marriage, love, fidelity, unending relationship. So it symbolizes more than just being a ring on a finger. Now, when you get into allegory, it's when you actually take more than one symbol and put them all together for a bigger meaning. So when we do that and we go back and we look at the rooms, especially when we talk about east to west, and we think about the birth to death, we are going from birth here to death. We start in the east and go to the west. Think about the sun in the very beginning. It starts in the east, it rises in the east, it sets in the west. The beginning of life in the east and death in the west. So some allegories that can actually come out of Masque of the Red Death are the first one, which is actually here, the allegory on life and death and the powerlessness of humans, because Masque of the Red Death is about the Black Plague and how it came in, on fleas that came in on rats, and that's how people contracted the plague, but they didn't know that. They didn't realize that these teeny little things were in their clothing, in their houses, and everything on a regular basis. But you read that in the nonfiction piece. So that's one thing, talking about life and death and everything else, that's an allegory. Or it could also be a political allegory on the rise and fall of the feudal system. Many of you know from history the feudal system has to do with having like the king and the queen and then lords and ladies, and it goes all the way down to peasants and whatnot. And at the time of the plague, A lot of people were wiped out, and again, the rise of it and then the fall of it, you know, talking about something that is new, it has its peak, just like the sun, and then has its fall. So again, the allegory on life and death, the cycle of life, the sun birth, and the night of the death, east to west. You have the symbols as well. The clock is the passing of time, the clock being a major piece in the short story. So you want to make sure that you understand about the clock, as well as the room colors. Those are all symbols. And the 7 rooms also can stand for 2 other things. The 7 deadly sins, which we'll look at in a few minutes, or the 7 ages of man. It's a monologue recited by the character Jacques in Shakespeare's comedy As You Like It. And the 7 ages of man actually compares the life to 7 acts in a play for the role of what happens during life. It's an extended metaphor. So the 7 ages of life are infant, schoolboy, lover, soldier, judge, old man, and then death. So the monologue itself goes through and it says, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then the whining schoolboy, with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like a pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly with good capoon lined, with eyes severe and beard of full formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slipper pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side. His youthful hose, well saved, a world too wide for his shrunken shank, and his big manly voice, turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sounds. Last scene of all, that ends this strange, eventful history, is second childishness and mere oblivion, sun's teeth, sun's eyes, sun's taste, sun's everything. So the 7 deadly sins, which again the 7 rooms, some of you may know some of these, but you have pride, envy, gluttony, lust, anger, greed, and sloth. So again, all of these things, going back to the idea of symbolism, each item has its symbol. Then when you put the symbols together, that makes an allegory. Hopefully you took some notes on this, and if you didn't, this video, you can obviously stop it and start it as many times as you want so that you can take notes for your reading and analysis. And that takes us through the post-reading instruction. Thank you.